Welcome to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants, with me, Shelley Fishel of Tomorrow's VA, and Joe Brianti of JLB Business Consulting. Each week, we chat with amazing guest experts, all aimed at helping you grow your VA business. So sit back, grab a cuppa, and tune in for a fun-filled episode.
This meeting is being recorded. Hey, Joe. How are you doing? We're being recorded. Did you know?
Just in case you'd forgotten.
Just in case. That nice lady is telling us what's going on. But that's really quite good, because if you are in a meeting that's being recorded, you might not want to be recorded. So it gives you the opportunity to leave if you don't want to see your mugshot all over the screen and what have you. So Joe, it's been a few weeks since we chatted. We have had we had a 3-week break while I was in the UK. And we had an episode go out this week with Sarah Broadbent. We are recording this, listeners, on the 7th of July. And that episode's been quite popular. And we are at 5,970 something downloads.
Woohoo!
When I last
Excellent.
looked, which is phenomenal. So, and we've got quite a few booked in now, beginning to pick up. Listeners, we now have a form on the podcast webpage where you can go and apply to be a guest. And I'll remind you of that at the end. So, Joe, what have you been up to since we last had a chat?
Well, I had 2 days sort of booked out for the VA show, which obviously you and I were going to see each other in person for the first time in 12, 18 months, have a cup of tea, speak to everybody, see. And we all know where that went. So, just busy. There's been such a lot sort of just all coming together at the same time. My son had a positive lateral flow test, took him to a PCR test. That came back negative. So he went back to school, no problem at all, to be sent home with in isolation because somebody else in his class has had a positive PCR. So he's now home for a couple of weeks. There's been some additional driving around and chauffeuring for my son because he was accepted into the QPR Football Academy.
Wow.
So I was chauffeuring him to the end of the term. And it feels like such a lot, but the most important thing, I've booked my holiday, and I've booked restaurants to make sure that, because obviously you can't just rock up somewhere, so we have booked restaurants for some of the days we'll eat at home and all the rest of it, but no, so I'm having another 10-day walking holiday in the Yorkshire Dales, which will be lovely.
Oh, that's lovely. It's where I come from. I'm originally from Leeds. So the Yorkshire Dales are really pretty. I know that. I've been really busy. So as you mentioned the PA show there, so I was in the UK for a couple of weeks because I went for the show. And of course, then it didn't happen, which was a little bit of a disappointment, to say the least. I had my banner turned up. I had my flyers. I've got beautiful flyers. I've got my backdrop. It all was there and we couldn't use it. So I will be back in the UK in September for the rescheduled dates. And I'm fairly sure that it will go ahead with all the restrictions now being lifted in July. But what that will depend on is whether I can fly in from Israel, because Israel might get strict again because of infections. So we'll just have to play it by ear. I'm not booking until the beginning of August at the very earliest.
Yeah.
So that's that. But since I got back, I mean, I had a very busy time while we were there. We hardly had time to breathe the first week, because we crammed a year's worth of social activity into a week. And then we had the non-event that was the show. But since I've been back, it's been really busy. I've been recording, I've recorded an admin chat for Lucy Brazier's ES support channel, which has just reminded me I've got to send it to them. It's all ready to go, but I forgot to send it. Darn it, I better do that when we come off the call. I've got a session to record for PA Forum. I'm going to be speaking at their conference in September, and that's going to be a pre-recorded session, so that's got to be created. I'm doing a session for ES Tech, Executive Support Tech, which was ES Tech, Exec Tech last year. It's now ES Tech. So I'm doing one session for them. this year, not 2, because it falls over Yom Kippur. So I can only speak on the first day. I can't have even pre-recorded stuff going out on Yom Kippur itself. It's just not the right thing to do for me. So I've got that session to pre-record. I've been delivering Excel training to clients in London, webinars for smart events. Last night I had 16 people. Somebody was in Houston, Texas. Somebody else was in Germany. Somebody was in, I think there was somebody in Mexico even. I don't know. They were all over the place. So I'm a bit immersed in Excel at the moment, which is just as well, because July for Tomorrow's VA is Excel month. So all my how-to articles this month, all my blog posts this month, all my newsletters this month will be about Excel. So lots and lots of Excel going on. So it's been really busy, but good stuff, all good stuff. So
very exciting.
It is
very exciting. When do you take a rest, Shelley?
I don't. The truth is, I don't. I did yesterday. I was so tired yesterday afternoon, and I knew I was speaking for 2 hours in the evening. So I did actually go and lie on the couch for half an hour. And this morning I didn't do very much, because I have to admit, delivering a 90-minute training session in the morning is kind of very energetic, and then a 2-hour marathon. And they moved it. It was supposed to originally was supposed to start at 7 p.m. here for me. So it finished at 9, but it started at 8 for me. They're in the organization are based in Central European time, which is just 1 hour behind Israel. So when they said it was starting at 7 o'clock, not 6 o'clock, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute. So I didn't finish till 10 o'clock last night, which, to be honest, was a bit late. And I've got the same again tomorrow. So I did nothing much this morning, just chilled a bit. And I had time to go shopping, but I thought, no, you know what? I can't. I'm just going to stay here and do not a lot. So I like to be busy. So that's that. But anyway, we are going to be talking very shortly to the wonderful Jude Turner, who is a business mentor in the social media space. And I'm very excited to be having a chat with her a bit later on. She was recommended to us as an ideal guest for the podcast by the wonderful Pip Dolman. And apologies there if you heard my phone beep. I forgot to put it on silent. But hey ho, these things happen. It's live. And so we're looking forward very much to speaking to Jude Turner. I'm not going to say much else about her. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So it's going to be another one of those episodes, isn't it, Joe, where you say, no, social media is not my thing.
Well, maybe Jude will make me love it, and maybe she'll make me want to do it all the time.
Like fly, I think.
Yes, that's true.
But I think the point is we'll find out from Jude when she comes on. But I think one of the things, actually, seriously, is it's been quite evident to us over the slightly over a year that we've been doing this, that we can't all do everything and do everything properly and well. We have to play to our strengths. And that's what you do, and that's what I do. So, that I don't think there's any shame in saying it's not for me, and let me outsource it. We're both outsourced professions, if you like. I'm an outsourced training partner. You're an outsourced GDPR consultant. So, it would be really bad if we didn't outsource anything that we didn't like doing. We wouldn't be setting a very good example, would we?
No, exactly. And outsourcing is the way to go.
Yeah. And I'm about to outsource the podcast editing on a more frequent basis, because I've realized while we were in the UK, I got Lisa Curtis, who has edited a few episodes for me when I've been kind of up to my ears in stuff. I wrote to her and I said, look, I'm going to be away. We're going to be recording these 2 episodes while we're away. Can you just edit them for me? And she did a great job. And actually was just about to send her an email. So Lisa, if you're listening, you'll have received the email by the time this episode goes out, but you're going to be getting more podcast editing to do, because I can do it. Definitely I can do it. I've done 52 of them. But do I want to do it every week when I've got lots of other things to be doing? Probably not. So there you go. Outsourcing is definitely the way to go. So on that note, we better go and get Jude.
There she is.
There she is again, that lovely lady telling us we're all being recorded. So welcome back, listeners, after Joe and I had our preliminary chat all about, well, stuff. And we're now delighted to welcome the lovely Jude Turner, who is a social media business mentor. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Oh.
I sometimes put it in different ways. Sometimes I say business mentor, sometimes I say social media mentor. So you can call me what you like.
Answer to anything. That's great.
Yeah, I'll do anything.
You'll do anything. Well, within reason, I hope. But seriously speaking, Jude was introduced to me by Pip Dolman, who is one of my listeners and one of my hub members. She's done some of my Microsoft courses. So thank you, Pip, for recommending Jude as a guest. And Joe, you and Jude haven't met before today, have you?
No, not at all. But when you mentioned social media, I just thought I'm bound to be able to learn lots. It's not exactly in my
It's the hot
list of
topic.
favourite things.
It's a hot topic, absolutely. So Jude, before we kind of launch, why don't you just kind of, using the word kind of a lot, I'm out of practice here. We've had 3 weeks off and I'm completely out of practice. But anyway, so Jude, why don't you let us, our listeners, know who you are and how you got to be a business mentor or a social media mentor or a combination of the two and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so my business name is Jude Turner Creative. I couldn't think of a business name at the time, so I thought I'd use my name, and I bunged creative on the end because I like working with creative women, and I also think of myself as being quite creative. So I started, goodness, I did that thing that a lot of mums do. I started a business once my child started sleeping. It took a lot longer than I'd hoped. He didn't sleep through the night till he was about 2. He's almost 12 now. So, and I had a handmade business where I did all of the things. So it became very successful. I was stocked around the world, but I had to do everything, including social media. So I found that I used to kind of, what's the word, like skills exchange for when I couldn't afford to do things when you're a new startup. So I'd be like, I'd really like a store at that market, can't quite afford it. So then I'd approach the owner and say, well, how about if I set up a Facebook page for you and do that? And it was all self-taught. But I learned so many lessons along that journey. I decided to close down the business when I took it sort of as far as I thought it could go after like 6 years or so, and just concentrate on the social media side of things. And I wanted to share all of the lessons that I had learned on those years. So things that took me years to learn. I was like, well, what about if I taught other women who are trying to do all of the things, that stuff too? So that's my passion, is working with mainly female entrepreneurs. I do have a few male clients, but they usually want things done for them rather than learning, I find. And I used to do social media for people, but now I train people in how to do it. So that is my passion, sharing that knowledge and helping women move from that totally overwhelmed feeling to moving out of frustration into becoming fully booked.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So Joe, you're on the done for you with social media, aren't you?
Yes.
Big sigh.
Yeah,
big
we have
sigh,
this discussion a lot. It's an in joke. It's become an in joke.
It is the in joke. I mean, and I'll be quite straight up and I'll repeat it again. I don't do Canva and I'm not particularly great with social media. I can come and have a chat with people, but, you know, there are other things that are a lot more exciting, like Excel, like GDPR, and why would you want to be in Canva?
GDPR, I would never call that exciting. That was the bane of my life when I was doing Done For You. Oh,
You see, we're all different.
I do love a spreadsheet though, Joe. We're not totally alien souls. I love a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
What platforms do you cover, Jude?
Mainly Instagram and Facebook.
Right.
I also know Pinterest pretty well. I steer clear of Twitter because it takes a lot of work, even though I won, just a little plug, I did win 2 Twitter awards when I had my handmade business but it was good for that kind of thing. So what there's a Small Business Sunday you can enter, which is run by Theo Paphitis of Dragon's Den, and there's Jacqueline Gold's Women on Wednesday. So your audience can still enter those. And it's really good for PR. It's really good for PR. However, I know VAs love LinkedIn. I loathe it. I absolutely loathe it. So I would never say I'm an expert on LinkedIn. I've tried. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I'm part of a I'm an IT trainer. I'm part of a trainer community, and our trainer community leader doesn't get LinkedIn either. She's quite open about it. She loves Facebook, but she doesn't get LinkedIn as much. She's got better at it. She's now doing really well there, but sometimes it's a necessary evil if you want, a platform that you don't necessarily like. You need to be there if that's where your clients are, don't you?
I agree.
I was going to say, isn't it more about, rather than liking or loathing the platform, it's about understanding where your target client is, and then at least trying to kind of hang out there?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's no point being somewhere where your client isn't.
Yes.
So like teachers, for example, they love Twitter. So if you're doing anything in education sector, I would make you go on Twitter because they just love it. VAs do love LinkedIn in my experience, but it's hard to stick with something when you hate it.
Yes.
It is really, really tough. So I built a social media training thing. I talked to your former guest, I believe, Amanda Thompson, for advice about it. And I had built this thing. She said, well, it sounds really good, but, you put it out there. And I had tons of VAs, sending me their details on LinkedIn. But it feels very much like an exchange of business cards to me. It didn't feel like we're having any real conversations. I'm not sure my style fits. So
I know what you mean, though.
It's not a good fit for me.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, because it started out as a recruiting site. So effectively, it was kind of an exchange. It was your CV that you were putting out there.
It's good for that.
It's great for that. It's great for that. It is harder to make relationships there, but it is possible. And I think it really depends very much on where you are, on where your clients are, or the people that are going to refer you.
I've seen some people have great success on there. I just can't figure out why it doesn't work for me, but I just know it doesn't. So I've just been like, well, I don't need to be everywhere. As long as I'm where some of my clients are, at least, then that's okay. I think if I was like really wanting to reach corporates and work with more people, then I would maybe make more of an effort. But my clients tend to be creative women who definitely don't like LinkedIn. So it's like Joe said, where are they hanging out is certainly a really good place to start.
Yeah, so I presume you must be ace at Instagram.
I'd like to say so, yes. Not to blow my own trumpet, but yes, I'm amazing.
Fantastic. I love it. It's great. So have you got any top tips for Instagram? I mean, I am actually on all the platforms. I'm on nearly everything. Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, everywhere. Facebook.
I think I'm on everywhere. I think I am everywhere, but I'm not necessarily engaged with everywhere. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I started on Twitter, and then Twitter and LinkedIn was where it started, and Facebook wasn't really around that much when I started.
Yeah.
So
it's changed. It's changed to a different beast, definitely. So with Instagram, I think the main tip I would have would be about what people focus on. So I find that because it is such a visual platform, people concentrate too much on the vanity metrics of what things look like to other people. So they're constantly looking at how many likes and followers you've got. And what I try to explain to people is you don't know what's going on underneath the bonnet. When I had Jessie Jumbles, my handmade business, I did a pop-up shop with a woman that I followed on Instagram. I was like, oh, can't believe I'm in the same pop-up shop as her. She ran a pajama company, sort of mum and kids matching things, very trendy and Instagrammy. Trendy, how old am I? And I was sort of a bit fangirling, to be honest. And she told me that her business was folding. I was like, what? Because she'd spent her budget on PR. So that's why she looked amazing, but actually she wasn't getting clicks through to her website. She wasn't getting, the phone calls and emails that we all want to run a sustainable business, but she did have shed loads of followers and likes. Now, if you guys looked me up at Jude Creative, you will see that I do not have hundreds of thousands of, I think I'm on about, I don't actually know, around the 1,700 mark, but my audience are engaged and they click through to what I am selling all the time, which is really the point of social media. It isn't pretty squares. It is to drive traffic to my website, to get clients on my programs. Otherwise, I'm not there just to put up pictures and get people go, that's a really nice picture. I'm running a business.
Yeah. What's your tips for creating the type of engaging content that would make me want to click through, or anybody else that, let's say that was coming to my feed or to Shelley's feed? What do we have to put in that post that makes people
That's a really good
to go through to the podcast page or Tomorrow's VA, or I mean,
well, there are two,
especially talking. Sorry, I was going to say, especially thinking mine is such a hard sell. You said you can't bear GDPR. The whole world can't bear GDPR. So how do you make that?
Wow. There's kind of two folds to this. So I'm going to go with what you just said because it just popped in my head.
Yeah.
So GDPR, when you were selling something that isn't sexy, accounting, it might be sexy to some people. I'm sorry to my accountant if she's listening. GDPR, the jobs that people do not want to do or they do not want to learn about, to be honest, social media is one of them. Lots of people feel like I feel about GDPR, about social media. The language that my clients use is overwhelmed, hate it, got to tame the beast. I'm like, Jesus, it's just social media, but it makes people feel that way.
Yeah.
So when I'm selling something that I don't think people necessarily want, but they need, I would focus on what is your client's problem? What's your client's problem? How are you the solution? And how are they going to fit? Start again. How do they feel about this problem? How are you going to solve it? And how are they going to feel after you've solved it? So with GDPR, you're going to go straight in with, you don't know what it is. You feel totally overwhelmed. You've got to do that, much like your tax return, but you want to get it right. You don't want to be, banned or fined or whatever the GDPR regulations are. You have to get this right. And you're like, don't worry, let me take this off your hands. Wouldn't it feel great knowing you had ticked that, your business was compliant? Hooray! Luckily for you, I love GDPR. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I always go with solving the problem. Usually when I say this at this point, people go, but I don't have a problem. I sell, this is VAs, but you might have, I sell cushions, or I'm just going to help someone run their business. When you're selling a product like a cushion, it is a first world problem. It's, I want something that looks nice on my sofa. Well, I've got something that looks nice on your sofa. Yay, let's meet. Lovely. But when you're selling a service like VAs or like GDPR or even like social media, what you are offering the customer is you're either offering to do something they either don't have the time or the inclination to do. So that is where we're going in with the problem. So Pip, as you mentioned, is my VA. She was a one-to-one client of mine who I thought was so good I employed her. I trained her and then employed her. What she offers through her social media is showing that what are the tasks on your to-do list you don't want to do or you haven't got the time to do. So that is my sort of top tip for virtual assistants. In terms of when people land on your grid, you can say that till the cows come home in various ways, but the things that will make people click through to your website are a very obvious come here and do that post. So literally I am offering training on this. Those very clear posts will get clicks through. And the one that never fails that people don't like when I tell them is showing your face.
Yeah.
Always a face.
Yeah.
Joe is pulling that face. People respond to people, and I fought this for years, Joe, absolutely years. My business mentor was like, you've got to show your face. And she's like, just get over yourself, for goodness sake. I was like, I don't want to, but the stats don't lie. And all of my posts that get me the most traffic to my website are this mug here.
Yeah, I can second that. While a few weeks ago, I live in Israel, and we were meeting up I was meeting my husband in Jerusalem. He'd gone to Jerusalem in the morning, and I was going on the train, and the train got stopped because there was a fire near the main Jerusalem train station. So there were no trains from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I had to get the bus. So first of all, I'd taken a selfie of me in my mask on the bus, on the train, saying I'm on the train, because I have a friend who always does this. She always posts selfies of her on the train. So it was kind of, Deborah, see, I've done it too. And that, of course, gets a lot of laughs. And then, of course, I had to do one on the bus. And what I didn't know was I had my mask on up because I DDoS on the side and I had it back to front. And that generates a huge amount of engagement.
Yeah, really.
Much more than anything else. So whenever I posted a picture of me or the family or doing something like that, those are the posts that get the engagement. Definitely.
I think we just crave human connection. It's as basic as that.
Yeah.
So even if you are hearing this and going, oh my God, that sounds like my worst nightmare, you can start off with, it sounds ridiculous, but I had an artist client who just started off having her hands drawing. And even that, just showing it's not a stock image, it's a real person. It's the difference between sort of working with a huge business and working with what feels like a more personal, which VAs are, and your GPDR service. It's very much a, one-to-one kind of relationship. It involves a lot of trust. You are handing over your business to someone to help you run it. And you need to know you need to know the person behind that before you give.
What about video? My next. Oh my God! I can tell my face.
I'm really enjoying Joe's facial expressions on.
I'm loving it.
She's gonna tell me I've got to go on video now. I mean, video is king, Joe. I'm sorry to tell you, video is not going anywhere. It is here to stay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you know, I have never done a selfie. I don't even know where to start with the selfie.
You've got a lovely face.
If you hold the camera like this, you're trying to press the button. It's all a bit complicated.
You've got one of those sticks, Joe, so they hold it at arm's length and then it gives you a more flattering angle.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a picture of you now and I'm going to say, this is what I'm doing today. Okay. There we go. That's well, it's not a selfie because I took it, but you can pretend. So yeah, video is key, whether you do that with a live or a story or dare I say it, reels, which usually makes people start coming out in palpitations. If you want to do something more put together, maybe a lesson or top tips, something like that, then I'd advise using like Igtv on Instagram, because then you can upload a video. You can make it a little more formal rather than you just off the cuff. I don't know, not everyone is comfortable with off the cuff speaking, but you can put together, some tips or why would you hire a VA and talk about why that's important and have, little cards to remind you what you're saying. And then you can then share that to stories or to your grid. So you're repurposing content. So you're like, okay, I did have to do a video, but at least I only had to do it once. And then I shared it, in more than one place.
Yeah, that's a really cool tip. Yeah. And Joe, just to remind you, you're on video right now. Because this gets recorded and it goes on YouTube. And we get views. We do get views. But I want to pick up there on stories and IGTV, if you don't mind, Jude, because I'm all over the place, and I outsource my social media because it's a time thing. It's not that I can't do it. It's just that I've got other things that I need to be doing. So I don't want to be spending that time. And my VA, Zita, does a great job with my stuff. But stories and IGTV, I haven't quite got my head around how to use them, etc. So I'm really interested in what you just said, because I have no fear of video. It's really not a problem for me, as you might have gathered. And all of my training is either live webinar style training or live virtual training or pre-recorded training courses. So IGTV, do you need to do anything special to get that, to be able to use it?
No, you just have to make sure you're filming. I always get these muddled up. That's horizontal, isn't it? You have to make sure you're filming vertically. That is it. That is it. Yeah, you really don't need anything else. The question that has come up a few times, which I was training on this morning, funny enough, was that, and also Joe, I'd like to say, the more video training you do, the more comfortable you become with it, because after a while you forget there's a camera there and we're just talking. So that's why if Shelley's done shed loads,
it's not a problem.
Each of the features you have on Instagram, as we're talking about Instagram, they all kind of serve a different purpose. So your grids, your squares, your profile, I always thought it was just called grid, but someone in my group this morning went, what's grid? So I'm like, okay, maybe not everyone knows that. Your squares on your profile, that's your shop window. So that should show you what your business looks like. Ideally, pre-slick. We don't want to see graphics with half the words cut off because they're not square. We don't want to see half a head. It doesn't need to be color coded, or it doesn't need any of that stuff, but it does need to. I wouldn't employ a VA who couldn't crop a picture. It's just common sense. So that's your shop window. Your stories are a way of reminding people who follow you that you're there, because not everyone who follows you sees your content, because unless they engage with you, the algorithm's like, they're not that interested in you. So by having these little squares and you just posting, whether it's just, you on a bus on your mask, or sharing someone else's content, or a meme or a quote, people love a quote, then it's just a, hi guys, I'm over here, don't forget about me, I've got some good stuff going on. A reel will attract, is A, to be entertaining, but it is B, to attract people who don't know your existence. Now, reels haven't quite yet been developed to a point that they are shown to necessarily your ideal client. I had a reel reach 2,000 people in an hour last week advertising the workshop that I'm currently running, but I got maybe 2 people from that came through to me, because it's shown to everyone indiscriminately. But saying that, it's sometimes worth casting that net and seeing if you can pull in a few fish, isn't it?
So what's the reel? What's the reel? Sorry.
I was just going to ask.
I'm loving this. I'm loving it. So what's the reel?
I don't know if you've got your phones in front of you, ladies, but if you were on your Instagram sort of homepage, just going to get it up to show you. Check it hasn't moved. So you've got your home button at the bottom. Next to that, you've got a magnifying glass. Next to that, there's what looks like a clapperboard with a play button. That is reels.
Okay.
You can find them by pressing the clapperboard, or you can click on the magnifying glass. Now, the magnifying glass, that's just your general discovery page. So it's a mixture of things that Instagram thinks you might like based on what you have looked at. And there will always be a reel, which will look like a video in the top right-hand corner. So I warn you, when you go down this rabbit hole, you will lose hours of your life. Be very careful.
There always seem to be people doing dancing, like this one here, just doing some very random dancing.
It's very random. It is very random. And Instagram basically brought it in as a potential replacement for TikTok, which is a lot of dancing. There are people who do educational things on there, but a lot of it is random people dancing or putting on makeup. I won't lie, there's a lot of that. But it is like fun, light-hearted content. So it depends on how you get a lot of people pointing as well. A lot of people pointing and then adding text from Canva or various apps are available saying, dunk, dunk, dunk. So do this task today, or, something like that. But you can get stuck down a complete wormhole once you start going through them. You're shown them randomly. I wouldn't recommend spending too long on there.
No, I think it's
They bought they were trying to get TikTok because there was a thing with Trump and China and TikTok, and Instagram just jumped on that bandwagon and thought, well, if TikTok's going under, we're going to replace them. But TikTok still exists, so
yeah.
it didn't happen.
And it sounds like it's also a thing to do when the men are watching the football for me. You go and get looked down a rabbit hole.
Play around with it, but
Yeah, I'm
they're
going to
not
investigate.
to create without video instruction or tutorial. They're a hard thing to teach, I find.
Yeah. No, I think it's something I will definitely investigate and see. But also, I think also what has made me think about, though, I mean, all of this talk, and just being a bit flippant, but bringing it back, is you do need a strategy for this, don't you? It's no good just saying, let's just go and do a story, or let's just do a post, whichever platform you're on. You do need to have some sort of a structure of what you want to do, don't you?
Right, that's an amazing point, Shelley. Again, what I was talking about in my workshop this morning is a lot of the reason people become overwhelmed as well with social media is A, trying to do all of the things, but B, if you're just going to sort of rock up and post and put the first hashtags that come into your head because you've just looked around the room and gone, oh, I don't know, virtual assistant, I can help you, whatever. Then you're like, well, I put all this effort into thinking about what to post. I found a picture, I added a hashtag, or I made a reel, I did this, and then nothing. Why am I being inundated with likes and follows and stuff? Is you didn't have a plan. You weren't thinking about, okay, this quarter, what do I want from my business? Is it to get some new clients? Is it to become more visible? Is it to get sign-ups to my email list? What's the point of it? Shops don't have, new collections coming out without a vast marketing plan behind it.
Yeah.
And the same goes for, our businesses. It doesn't have to be anything too complicated, but posting randomly and inconsistently will not result in any business. And if it does, it was a fluke and you won't be able to repeat it.
Yeah. You see, Jo's got a question.
She has. She's got the question face on.
She has.
Yeah.
Now we've jinxed it.
Yeah, I lost my thread, but I was really into what you were saying. Oh yeah, that's what I remember. What it is now. Does it matter if you haven't got millions and squillions, or I don't even think I've got 1,000 likes, to be honest. And does it matter if your post doesn't get 400 million likes on it and goes viral? No. In order to generate the response that you want, which is that somebody to go from your post to that landing page or your web page or whatever that thing is.
We are really looking at quality, not quantity here, but it is not how Instagram kind of advertises itself. We hear so much about, excuse me, influencers and going viral that we focus on those, but those things aren't aimed at us. The only time you need to go viral or be an influencer, if you're on Love Island and you want to get a swimsuit deal or something like that, it is not for the likes of us. That's not how we grow sustainable businesses. So I like to use analogies. Warn you, I'm surprised I haven't used one till now. The best analogy I give people about this, and it's the same one I use for hashtags, is that if you picture your local coffee shop, picture it now. Yeah. And you walked in there and everyone when you walked in was like, oh my God, Jo, I really want to know about GPDR. Oh, GPDR, Jo, can you help me? And the whole place was clamoring with people who wanted what you were selling. Then I would ask people how that makes you feel. And they're usually like, that would be amazing. Can't imagine having a room full of people interested in what I'm selling. And then you think, well, how many people are in that cafe? Now, I live in Brighton, so it's a city, but I would still say that my cafe only holds maybe 50 people tops. So why do we care if we've got 10,000 people? 50 people buying from you would make a huge amount of difference to most people's business.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
We want people who are engaged and who are our fans. So rather than worrying about trying to please everyone and reaching these bigger numbers all the time, we end up neglecting the people who are there, who are like, actually, I'm interested in social media. I really want to learn from you. And then they're like, oh, but you're off trying to chase the next 1,000 and you're not, they feel like you don't care about them. So nurturing the people you have will automatically bring in more people anyway, because you will have an engaged community. The algorithm will see that people are interested in what you're saying, so it will consequently show it to more people. And we want click-throughs and profile visits. We really don't care about likes. And Instagram have actually introduced, but I haven't seen many people take them up on it, a way of hiding your likes and your competitors' likes to try and stop that becoming a focus.
Yeah. And then I think that's really important. It makes me think about, it's all very well, we all aim for these very large email lists, because you effectively, everybody says the money is in the list. And to a certain extent it is, because, you start a newsletter to educate your followers or your people who are interested in what you want to say, but you do also want to sell them something. We're all running a business. And if we were to say that we didn't, it would be a great big fib, wouldn't it? We do obviously want to sell our stuff, but we also want to educate people and help them if we're decent business people as well. But it's much better to have a smaller list with 100 engaged people than to have thousands of people where nobody ever opens an email. So it's the same principle. Same principle.
It'd be lovely to have 10,000 people who are all totally engaged with you, but that can come. But then if you had 10,000 people or whatever engaged with you, it would be a different kind of business. You'd probably have a team of people, and so it's not to say you won't get there or that's not possible. I don't believe that should be your focus.
It's also whether that's what you want, as well. Do you want that kind of a scale, which means that you are then you might be the face of the business, but you're no longer the business because you've got all these other people doing everything. So it's quite a dilemma then once it gets to that kind of
I guess that must be a thing your audience have as well, because when I was being a social media manager, and I presume the same for a virtual assistant, is you have a limit of how many people you can serve. And then you have to take the decision to whether you say I'm at capacity or whether you take on people and outsource and white label your services and all of that. Now, I knew I did not want to run a social media agency. So I moved into training because I prefer that to managing accounts for people, but I do the odd, passion project. So it's thinking about that route of where you want to go. And you might not know it yet if you've just started, but as you grow, it becomes do I want to specialize in this? Do I want to go there? Do I want to have a specific industry? And you move from there. Yeah.
We've talked over the podcast has been going for just over a year now. Wow. And I can't remember, episode 57-ish around about now, something like that. And we've talked about niching a huge amount. It comes up in nearly every episode.
Big question, It does every day or two.
Because it's important, because you need to know who you're talking to.
Yes.
And then you can use the right language, you can persuade them, you can, use the right terminology when you understand them properly as well. So that's I think really important. And sometimes when people start out, they don't know what they want to do either. So it takes a while to kind of find that niche. Was that the case for you? Did it take you a while to find your niche, Jude?
Yes, because when I imagine in a similar way to when a VA starts, when I started managing people's accounts, I took the clients that came to me, the people that there wasn't really much of a vetting process. It was you'll pay me that, great, I'll do the work then. But what it meant was I was doing a yoga retreat, an engineer, whatever. I had random industries. Now, I didn't choose to niche into one particular industry as such, but I'm still only talking to one kind of person, and that is a frustrated, overwhelmed female entrepreneur. So although it isn't a specific industry, they all have the same problem. So I think if I was starting off as a VA, I would do that same thing. It's still someone who is looking for extra help, be it in whatever industry. It might be you don't know what niche. Like sometimes I'm like, actually, I really like working with writers. And then I'll have a writer that's, maybe not that great, or the content's a bit dull. And I'm like, I wish I hadn't got rid of the client I had who did this. So it's finding something you're passionate about, your niche, because you're not going to be able to do it well for someone if you don't care.
I was going to say your niche could easily be a service rather than who you work with. Because if you become an expert in I don't know, a particular tool or a particular. So, for instance, we spoke to Stephanie William, who became an expert in Canva, and she just does Canva, and she's very, very good at it. So that's her niche, rather than saying I only work with authors or trainers. Or
I did contemplate niching into Pinterest at one point, because I loved I do love Pinterest, and a lot of people weren't offering that because it's different in how the other platforms work, and it changed all the time. So it's, you know, the content, but I actually really love writing copy, and there's not as much of that on Pinterest. So although I offer that, I thought, no, I don't want to niche into that. So sometimes it's working out what you don't want to do, and then it's like, well, actually, I really love talking, as is apparent, I'm sure. And before COVID hit, I was thinking I would like to get into more, you know, speaking gigs. I love talking to women and firing them up and helping them realize that, no, you know, you can get rid of the overwhelm, and it's not the tech and the algorithm and the knowledge that's actually standing in your way. It's exactly that. It's all in your head, and you can learn that stuff, and then, you know, you can fly. And that's why I mentor people, because it's a combination of the two things.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I like standing up in front of people as well. So I kindred spirits here. I understand that.
Give me some tips.
Understand that. No, that's fantastic. Well, I think it's just been a fascinating interview. We've been rambling for ages. I think we ought to stop nattering away, although I'm sure we could carry on for another hour if we.
Yeah, I'm not sure everyone would want to listen for another hour.
we need to think of our listeners. That's what we're saying. We need to think of our listeners. So, listeners, we've been in conversation with Jude Turner. Jude, is there anything you want to tell our audience that how they can find you, or any programs you've got coming up?
Sure.
If they want to work with you, how can they work with you?
So I work in various ways. There are little things you can get from me that will just help you if you're a bit stuck on one thing. So power hours, #helps, social media audits, where I look at what you're doing and give you tips. There are little sort of packages like that. Then I have one-to-one mentoring, which is my sort of top rung I do, where you work with me for 3 months, and it's all bespoke, and we speak once a week, and you have Voxer support from me, and I just coach and mentor you for a few months, and then you can choose whether you want that to carry on 6 months, maximum of a year. The main thing that I'm doing at the moment is my Frustrated to Fully Booked program, which does exactly what it says. It covers all aspects of what you need to market your business. So that covers mindset, confidence coaching. I have an amazing speaker who just blows my mind. We have a money coach, and then we have Canva class, Reels class, Stories class, how to master your messaging. So we kind of cover everything in 12 weeks. And doors are open for that now, and it starts in September. You can find everything on judeturnercreative.com.
Fantastic. Well, if you send us links to that, if you send me a couple of links to any of that,
I would love to share.
Then I'll make sure it goes on the web page that goes with this episode, which would be amazing. So thank you very much for your time. And I think we're going to sign off.
All right, I will find you all on social.
Absolutely. I'm everywhere. I'm easy. I'm Shelley Fishel everywhere, or Tomorrow's VA. Mainly Shelley Fishel. And Jo, you are, what's your?
Normally Jo Brianti.
Okay.
I think there's one place where I'm J Brianti.
Okay. All right.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Oh, there she goes again, that lovely lady telling us we're being recorded, as if we didn't know. But it's a good thing. So, Jo, I thoroughly enjoyed myself just now chatting there with Jude. I think our listeners could probably hear the excitement. We were all jumping in on top of each other. So apologies to all of you if we did kind of do that, and it's quite hard to listen to. But it was not quite, but very interesting.
Yes, very. Social's not my thing exactly, and Reels is definitely not my thing, but I really found Jude fascinating, and I have been frantically scribbling down some tips, and I shall go away and think about them, aka procrastinate over them.
Well, you're owning up to it. At least you're human. You're being honest. You're being honest. But no, seriously speaking, though, I mean, Well, I actually am going to take issue with you there, Joe, about social not being your thing. You're very good on Twitter, and you do post on Facebook from time to time in various groups, because we're both in some of the same groups. So I do see that you do join. So you do social, you just don't do the visual social stuff. And I think we talked there with Jude about the idea that we don't always all have to be on all platforms.
Yes.
I know I seem to be on all platforms, but that's been an organic growth. I've been doing this for a very long time. And I started out with my first social platform was Twitter. And that was in 2007, because LinkedIn and Twitter in 2007, because that's what was there. The other platforms weren't there then. So that's where I was, because that's where everybody was at the time. And gradually it's grown since then, and I've branched out because I'm in the IT sector. I kind of feel like I need to be at least dipping a toe in on all these platforms, but I haven't touched some of the newer ones. It's enough, there's enough that you can do. As you touched on, a lot of it is just being visible. It's about raising your own visibility as much as anything else. And I think that's important.
You don't want TikTok. No. I mean, mind you, maybe my thing about that is that my 2 13-year-olds have said, Mum, we can't go on Instagram because you're there, so please don't go on TikTok.
Disguise yourself, couldn't you? Although, having said that, I joined Facebook because at the time our daughter went to the States for 6 months. This was in 2007, so it hadn't been around very long, and I joined Facebook so that we could, keep in touch visually. So she could, when she posted photos, we could see she was okay, and we could communicate that way, because it was a bit more instant than email or texting. But my kids have never minded the fact that their mum is on social media. And they find it quite useful to have a mum who's in Microsoft Office, because my son, who's a quantity surveyor, will quite often phone me up and say, Mum, I've got this spreadsheet. How do I blah, blah, blah? And it's his mum who has to solve the problem, as opposed to many families where it's the mum or the grandparents going to the grandchildren or the children to say, how do they do it? So it's quite funny that it's actually, in our case, it's me being the one solving that. So, but I, talking about, just said that was a spreadsheet. I use spreadsheets for everything. If I need to work something out, it's Excel that I launch, not Word. And that's not to say that I'm the world's greatest Excel expert. I do know Excel, but I don't do the really, really, really complicated stuff. I leave that to other people. But I use it for everything. I make lists in it. If I need to calculate price for a program, I use it. If I want to figure out how many people have bought something or sold something, it's Excel. If I'm planning my courses, it's done in Excel. If I want to plan my social media strategy, it will be a spreadsheet that I launch. Is that the same for you? Are you a spreadsheet person?
I love spreadsheets. And I use spreadsheets for an awful lot of things, but I do my social media planning, such as it is, in Microsoft Planner, which comes with my 365 package. So I have a bucket in my plan for the different elements of things that I want to do, or types of posts. I can't even remember how I do it now, but I use it in there. But in spreadsheets, I use that for anything where I'm using figures. I work with a client and I do some stuff in her active campaign. And once a month, I extract information from there, put it into spreadsheets. I create a pivot, produce a report and a graph and all that kind of stuff that I do, and that's the kind of stuff that I use Excel for. Like you, I'm not the VBA whiz with Excel, and I'm not the significantly advanced person, but I can get through to probably the intermediate level, I suppose.
No, it's a great It's a great tool. And I mentioned earlier on, I mean, I can't remember when this episode airs. It may be August by the time this episode airs, but July is Excel month at Tomorrow's VA. So everything that's going out from me in July is about Excel. And I decided to theme my my newsletter and my blog posts and everything going forward, because apart from anything else, it takes that guesswork out of planning what we're going to be doing. So, you know, that idea, right? I sit down and I think, now, what are we going to have for supper tonight or tomorrow or each day? But if I was sensible and I sat down on a Sunday morning and I said, okay, well, on Monday we're going to have this, and on Tuesday it would make life a lot easier. And that's the what I've decided to do with my all my online stuff recently, that everything dovetails. And we're, you know, my keyboard shortcuts this month that go on Instagram, funnily enough, they're all about Excel. They go on LinkedIn, they're all about Excel this month. And it just makes life a lot easier, because it's much easier to create that content, which kind of leads into something we've talked about in the podcast, which is batching. We've talked about that before, haven't we, Joe?
And batching is a really important and very productive way of working, because you get into the mindset to do a task, whether that's recording your podcast, whether that's blogging, whether that's a client report or whatever, but you block that piece of time. You do the same task 100 times in that period of time before you move on to the next task, and it just works so well. It makes it more sensible, because your brain goes into that specific focus and task, and then you keep doing that task till you come to the end of it, and then your brain can switch to the next task, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Great.
I do that. I will batch blog posts. So if I know that I need to write the next season of blog posts, I'll allocate a day for that, or a half a day, or however long I choose, and I'll just, you know, bash out however many I need in the time available, or however many I can at the time available. Either that, or I might outsource. I have to admit, I do sometimes outsource the writing of some of my stuff, but it's all very prescribed. It's not just willy-nilly. This is what we're going to be covering, and this is what it needs to talk about. So it's really useful to be able to do that, and batching is definitely the best way of working. I have found anyway, because we're all guilty of doing all of these bits and pieces. So it's been a great episode today, I think. Joe, what do you think?
So many great tips again. We are so lucky to have such a wide network of people between us, and referrals into the podcast, that we can share such amazing content. So great. Absolutely. So listeners, let's bring this to a close. I'm going to remind you that we now have an application form on the page on my website, on Tomorrow's VA Podcasts. There is a widget there where you can fill in a form to apply to be a guest. I love it. It connects into ActiveCampaign, and you go into an automation. So I'm being upfront about this. We will have a look at, it will ask you for your name and your email address, your website, and what you would like to talk about, what your topic might be. We will then vet you. So we will go and have a look at your website. We might have a call with you to see if we're a good fit. And then you'll go through the rest of the process to book an appointment, and we'll get chatting. So I am very excited about that. And I know it works, because we've had one person sign up there already, which is just fantastic. All about automating systems. And when it works, it's just so nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Lovely. When it works, it's great. So in the meantime, I think we will bring it to a close there. All of our contact details are on the podcast page. So do get in touch. Tell us who you'd like to hear from, and tell us what you learned from today's episode. We'd love to know. And we'll see you next week.
You have been listening to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants with Shelley Fishel and Joe Brianti. We will be back with you again next week with yet another amazing episode. See you then.